Hey guys, we're back out here on the land and it's really windy today, so hopefully this audio is actually usable. It feels great though, because it's gonna be like 75 for a high today. In the shade, it's actually kind of cool. But we thought we would do a video about how to vet a builder. How do you check them out? How do you interview them and figure out exactly if you want to use them? Like, what are some of the things to look for? What are some red flags to stay away from? I don't know, do you have anything else in the intro here? Just gonna stand there and look pretty?
Hi.
All right, so we're gonna break down some of these things for you. So hopefully you can look for these things in a builder and maybe, I don't know, avoid some of the pitfalls that we've come across.
So one of the first things you're gonna wanna do is inspect some of the properties that they're currently building. When you go to their houses, you wanna look at their framing, their finishes, the work that their subcontractors do. Does it look like good quality work? Do they keep a clean job site?
Specifically, some things you want to watch for are like, look at the framing. Does it look like it's aligning right and square? Look at some of the trim. Obviously, it'll depend on what stage the house is in if you can see all of this, but like if they're adding trim, do the miters meet in the corners of like the doors and the windows? Look at the tile work. Does it look like it's aligning? Does it look level? Is the floor level? Like, all of these seem very obvious, but you can pick up on little hints. Another one would be, I went and looked at one, he had just done the drywall. So I was feeling the seams of the drywall to see if there are lumps in the seams or that kind of thing, because then when your paint's on the wall, if there are lumps in the seams, that'll all show. So these are all things that you need to look for just in different stages of the house to see if you like the quality of the build.
The next thing you want to do is get a detailed cost breakdown, find out what's included and find out what isn't. We got a very great offer. We thought it was a great price. Come to find out there was no foundation included in the price, so it wasn't accurate.
Along with the cost breakdown, you're going to want to find somebody, ask questions of this builder of if they could make suggestions of things you could tweak or change that would be a significant cost savings to you. So obviously you want to build the house that you want to build, but I know we're always open for suggestions. If we could save $20,000 and it's something that we don't really care about, we're probably going to do that suggestion. But if it's something that we really want and they suggest, hey, you could change this thing, you could have a deck rather than a concrete porch or whatever, we like the concrete porch, so we're probably going to stick with that even if it does cost a little more. The next point is seeing if they're open to letting you do some of the work yourself.
Right, will they let you perform some of the tasks to save money?
We did that on our last house that we built. The landscaping, we asked if we could do the landscaping because we kind of like doing that anyway.
Right.
So it took some effort, not just physical effort, but planning out and designing an entire almost 1 acre yard of like all kinds of flower beds and landscaping and where grass was going to be and all of that. So we did all of that. Then we used the builder's discount at the nursery to buy all the plants.
Yeah, it took some planning. We got smaller plants, like 1 gallon for a good price, and then we nursed them in a nursery for a year.
Yeah, probably.
And then there were more developed plants that we could put in our yard.
So if you have an opportunity of something like that, it could be helpful. I think we saved probably $12,000 to $15,000, and this was 10 years ago. Just on doing the landscaping ourselves. Now, it's hard work, like it's back-breaking work, but it's also very rewarding when you look back and those things are settled and mature and you're like, oh, I planned all of this and got exactly what I wanted, and put it exactly where it was. So it's very rewarding.
The next thing you're going to want to do is meet with them in person so you can assess their competency.
Yeah, you kind of want to know if they know what they're talking about. Like if they're kind of waffling on answers or if they're if they go directly to an answer, then you're kind of like, oh, they might know what they're talking about. But some people you can kind of pick up, they're feeding you a line.
Yeah. Do you feel good talking to them or do you feel slimy afterwards?
Yeah, you have to trust your gut. I mean, there's something to be said for when you walk away from meeting somebody and you just kind of feel like, ugh. It's just, I don't know. You do have to trust that.
The next thing we're going to want to do is ask for a list of references and ask if it's okay to talk with them.
Yeah, and this is where you need to do the hard questions. Like when you get a list of customers, You know, when you're speaking to those people, you want to ask hard stuff because you're really trying to figure out if this builder is right for y'all, you know, for you. So you're going to want to say, hey, what would you build with them again?
Did they do good work?
Right. What didn't you, like, be specific. Say, what didn't you like? You know, there are going to be some things that they probably didn't like. And you want to avoid those, or you want to decide like, hey, I can take a risk on this. Maybe that's not that major of a thing.
Yeah.
Other things that you want to ask those customers would be like, was the timeline accurate?
Mm-hmm. Was the budget accurate? Were there any surprises in the budget that popped up?
Yeah, I mean, you don't want those. Budget surprises are a no-no unless it saves you money, but they usually don't go that way. You know, budget surprises usually end up costing you more money, so that's something you don't want. So then other things I would say would be, are you welcome on the job site? You know, because it's my house and you don't need to be in the way of the builder, but I'm going to show up and check on their work, and I'm going to show up and see what's going on, check on progress. I'll probably do it every day. But, you know, if you get a feeling like you're not welcome there, that's not good.
Right.
Was the build true to the plan? So you're having plans drawn up. You need to follow those specifically. And if they went off of those plans, I want to ask those other customers that and figure that out before I hire this person.
Right.
You want to know kind of how their communication was between these customers and the builder, because that's very important. And then I guess finally, the test I would say would be, you know, would you refer your mom to them? Because I mean, you're not going to send your mom to somebody to do business with them unless you really like them, right? You're not going to, like, that would be bad.
Right. You're not going to refer someone
that you
respect,
love.
yeah.
Right. So that's kind of the ultimate test is, would you send your mom to this person? You would ask this of those previous customers, and hopefully you can take all of this information and start to build a little portfolio of, yes, I think this gives me more trust in this person,
Yeah.
or maybe it doesn't. All right, the next point is to evaluate the builder's willingness to use materials that maybe you want to use. So there's a siding option that you want, or a particular roofing option that you really like. Some builders, they just are like, this is the way I've done it for 30 years and I'm not changing. And while that can be good because they've figured things out, I also want them to maybe consider different materials, because a lot of these construction materials and methods have improved over the last 10, 15 years especially. Like, there are some materials now that weren't around 20 years ago that are significantly more efficient, or they're faster to install, or they have more durability. And I want someone to at least consider that. I mean, if they can justify their position on why they do something a particular way, I'm fine with that. You know, if they can tell me why they do this method or why they prefer this material over the new material you suggested or whatever, then I'm fine with it. But they need to be able to have a reason, not just, oh, I've done it this way for 30 years or 40 years or whatever. But, you know, I'm willing to listen if they're willing to listen, and maybe they can figure out a new method or something new that they can do, and they pick up and do that from now on. You also want to make sure that the builder can kind of manage your expectations. As the homeowner, you know, you're going to be, I don't know, a ball of energy with all this, and they need to be able to kind of manage your expectations on the timeline and what's going to happen. But in regards to materials and stuff that I've been talking about, I would say just be careful. I've interviewed a bunch of different builders, and some have materials and methods that they like to use. And so when you ask them about a different material or installation method, they'll just say, oh, well, that's more expensive, or oh, that's too much, or this or that. They're kind of steering you in the direction they want you to go, which is fine, again, if they can justify their position. But you'll find some builders that really like using hardy plank, and they will try to steer you toward that and away from everything else. And some builders, at least in my area, they really like vinyl siding. There are some premium vinyl sidings, not just the cheap stuff, but they'll kind of steer you toward that because that's what they prefer and what their installers prefer. So if you have a particular method that you really want, you may have to kind of calculate that in as you're talking to these builders, that they may be steering you away from something that you want to do because they're either not familiar with it or they just don't like it.
Something else you want to look into is how financially stable are they? Can they weather the storm of construction? It can be a really big deal. If they're not stable, can they warranty your property? And if they make a mistake or something's not right, are they going to be able to fix it? Communication is something else you really have to vet. Do they get back to you quickly? Do they talk to you? Do they listen to you? Do they talk at you? Do they value both of your opinions? Do they listen to both the partners in the build and not just one? Do they ask clarifying questions if something isn't clear? If I say I want something and it's not clear, do they just accept, oh, I'm not sure, is it vague, or do they actually ask me what I mean about it? So when you're asking those questions, you also have to be reasonable about what you're requesting of them. Something else to think about is the timeline. They're not available all hours of the day. They have personal lives and family lives too.
The last point that we have for how to vet a builder would be timeline. This would be asking them how long they estimate your project would take overall. So what I would say is have some knowledge of what you think, in research that you've done, of how long you think the project should take, and then ask them and kind of square those two and see, do they kind of line up? Meaning, if I think it should take 6 to 8 months and he says, oh, we'll be 5 to 7 months, okay, that's in the window. That's within the same range. The other thing to ask would be if when his start date would be. So if he has other projects going or whatever, he may not be able to start right when you need your projects to start. So that's something you have to evaluate. Now, if you really like that builder and he's booked up, you might be willing to wait for that builder because of all these other things that we've told you. He has those qualities that you like. But if he takes on multiple projects at a time, you might have to kind of fit into a time slot. That's another thing to ask in this timeline thing is how many projects does he undertake at the same time? How many house building projects does he have simultaneously? I personally don't want someone that has a ton of them going at the same time because I just feel like I won't get the attention that I want and need on a home build. I'm fine with someone building mine and maybe one other at the same time, but it's just something to consider. The timeline caveat that I'll say is the locale that you're in. So where we used to live in Mississippi, starting November all the way through about February, it was just sloppy wet. It's the rainy season, it rains a ton all winter long, and it's really hard to do certain parts of the construction process during that time. Here where we are now in central Kentucky, it's not as big of an issue, but you do get into some freezing and snow issues occasionally. That's usually on like the January to February side, kind of late winter is when we get more of that here. So it's like building all the way up through December is not, most of the builders I've talked to, that's not as big of a deal. But it will depend on the locale that you're in. If you're watching this outside the United States, I have no idea. If you're in the mountains, that may be different for you. If you're up in Minnesota, obviously there's a longer winter period, so you just have to take that into consideration. Well, hopefully that gave you some ideas of things to look for with builders and things to ask so that you can find the right one for you. Was there one of those in particular that you are really keen on? Yeah, for me, communication is the big deal. Are they going to work with you? Are they going to talk to you? Yeah, that's key. Some of our trees are coming in nicely. It's good to see that. This is, I believe this is a sugar maple, so it's going to be yellow in the fall. And our flowers, we planted 100 gladiolas, yep. And they showed out. They were beautiful. Yeah, we actually got blooms this year, and we didn't think we were going to, so that's cool. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. Hopefully you got some ideas from it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you have other things that you have come across as you're building or you're looking into building, leave us a comment below. See ya. Bye.